The book of Revelation, I mean, it is just jam-packed with some seriously intense imagery, right? And you really see that come to life in the third angel's message from chapter 14. Now, at first glance, it can feel a little cryptic. But here's the key. If we try to see it through the eyes of its original first century audience, this urgent warning about choice and consequence, it becomes incredibly clear. So right out of the gate, the message just draws a line in the sand. This isn't some subtle suggestion, it is a dramatic prophecy laying out two very different paths with massive eternal stakes. And the whole thing really pivots on one single question. Who or what are you going to worship? Okay, so to really understand that choice, we first have to unpack the symbols. I mean, what exactly is this beast and what is its mark? The answer might not be what you think, especially when we remember who John was writing to way back in the first century. So let's just ask the big question. For the folks hearing this message for the very first time, living under the shadow of this massive global superpower, who would this beast have been to them? Well, for that first century audience, the beast was a dead ringer for Rome. It wasn't a literal monster with claws and fangs, but a symbol for the entire Roman system. It stood for that seductive temptation to put all your faith in worldly things. You know, the empire's military might, its economic power, its promise of security, instead of trusting in God. And this is the crucial part. The mark isn't some physical tattoo or brand. No, it's a symbol of where your allegiance really is. It represents making a conscious choice to adopt the world's way of doing things, to go along with its wickedness, and to kind of forget the Lord in favor of whatever seems powerful and safe in the here and now. And, as you might guess, choosing the path of the beast, well, it leads to a pretty serious consequence. It's described with another powerful metaphor, drinking the wine of God's wrath. And what's so fascinating here is that this kind of imagery wasn't new. It would have felt really familiar to John's audience. It's a direct callback to the Old Testament. You see, the prophet Jeremiah used the exact same metaphor, a wine cup of fury, to symbolize God's judgment on nations that had turned their backs on him. So this symbolic wine represents God's judgment, and it's poured out without mixture. What does that mean? It means it's pure, potent, totally undiluted. It's a really intense image for the direct, unavoidable consequences of choosing a life apart from God. And the passage absolutely does not hold back when describing this judgment. It talks about torment with fire and brimstone, and get this, in the very presence of the holy angels and the Lamb. The imagery here is all about permanence and finality, where the smoke of their torment goes up forever, and there is just no rest, day or night, for those who chose to follow the beast. But that is only one of the paths. The passage then immediately pivots to show us the alternative. It's a path not of consequence, but of endurance and hope. And it's called the patience of the saints. And this verse just lays it out so perfectly. See, this isn't a passive, just sit around and wait kind of patience. Nope, it's an active faithfulness. And it's defined by two key things: keeping the commandments of God and holding on tight to the faith of Jesus, especially when things get tough. You know, the Apostle James gives us the perfect picture of this kind of patience. He compares it to a farmer waiting for the harvest. A farmer doesn't just sit on his porch, right? He works the fields, he endures the weather, he trusts that the fruit is going to come. It's the same idea. The saints are called to be patient and to establish their hearts, trusting in the Lord's timing. So when you just lay it all out side by side, the contrast is, well, it's stark. On one side, you've got allegiance to worldly power, you get its mark, and that leads to the wine of wrath and no rest. The other path is all about endurance, keeping God's commandments and faith in Jesus, which ultimately leads to a promise of rest. Two very clear choices, leading to two profoundly different destinies. This brings us to the final promise in this passage, because it's not just about enduring through hardship, it's about what comes after that endurance. It's about the final reward for a life of faithfulness. A voice from heaven announces this blessing on those who die in the Lord, and their reward has two parts. First, they get to rest from all their earthly struggles. And, just as important, it says, their works do follow them. Okay, so what does that mean exactly? The principle here is actually pretty simple and direct. Our actions have eternal weight. The choices we make, the things we do in this life, that's the evidence of who we've chosen to serve. It's like a laborer getting paid by their employer. Every single person receives a reward from the master, whether that's good or bad, that they chose to obey. And this idea is echoed in other scripture, which puts it even more plainly. We reap rewards based on our works. Our actions lead to one of two things: eternal happiness or eternal misery. It all depends on the spirit, good or bad, that we chose to follow. In the end, our works are the ultimate proof of our allegiance.
And so that leaves us with a final, really thought-provoking question. The third angel's message, written for a first-century world that was just full of competing loyalties to emperors and empires, man, it hits just as hard today. In our world, which is also full of allegiances to people, to powers, to ideas, it forces us to look in the mirror and ask, what works will follow you?